We are on the Somme battlefield, the scene of the most disastrous fighting in the history of the British Army, where over 60,000 casualties were sustained in the first day of fighting alone. I'm walking in the Sunken Lane, trying to find a marker which explains what happened here to the 1st Battalion Lancashire Fusiliers, who left this spot at 0730 on July 1st, 1916, and charged towards the German lines. This is the forming up point where they waited for H-hour. Their last cigarette, their last nervous laughs together, and perhaps where they wrote their last letters to their loved ones. This video is their story. I'll just read this to you. To commemorate the actions of the 1st Lancashire Fusiliers, who at 7:30 AM July 1st, 1916, mounted this bank and crossed the field to attack the German lines they encountered. Withering fire from the front and both sides, the battalion lost 165 killed, 312 wounded, and 11 missing, presumed dead. So let's look at the ground in detail. This is a view across no man's land from the Hawthorn Crater that you saw being detonated at the start of the video. On the left is a rough representation of the British lines. It isn't perfect, and it was far more complex than this. On the right are the German lines, including the Hawthorn Redoubt where I am standing. These fortifications were centred on Beaumont-Hamel, a village off to the screen to the right. And just in front of the British lines is the Sunken Lane, and you can see it here with the line of trees. This was accessed by a sap or a tunnel dug by the Monmouthshire Regiment. The distance between the respective front lines was no more than about 200 metres, and on the evening before H-hour, the 1st Battalion Lancashire Fusiliers had made their way to occupy the Sunken Lane. This depression is believed to be the sap entrance, a sort of tunnel which ran from the German lines and allowed the British troops to move unseen into the Sunken Lane. We're at the Sunken Lane at Beaumont-Hamel. It's only the second time I've ever been here, and I recommend to anyone who comes to a World War I battlefield, you must visit this location. Changed very little from that day on the 1st of July 1916, and you can still pinpoint loads of the locations which are really pertinent to this story. Now, the original Sunken Lane was much longer. It's been eroded over the years and it's now much more smaller, but it's still an amazing place to come and visit, and you can still pinpoint some of the footage that we saw from the 1st of July, barely 20 minutes before they went through this hedgerow on towards Beaumont-Hamel. But where they would sadly be cut down by machine gun fire from the Hawthorn Ridge and also from Beaumont-Hamel itself. And maybe you can look at some of this hedgerow here and think, yep, that's exactly where those soldiers were sat, fixing their bayonets, having their last cigarette before they went over the top, as it were. One soldier in particular that I want to follow through on this journey is 2nd Lieutenant Samuel MacDonald Campbell. He was a banker before the war, and he was in charge of a Stokes mortar platoon, just like the guys that you can see here. And he was in the Sunken Lane prior to H-hour, waiting for the mine to be detonated at Hawthorn Redoubt before making his way over and through this hedge. Hawthorn Redoubt was a German strongpoint. The 252nd Tunnelling Company had packed 45,000 pounds of explosives under the position, and it would signal the start of the battle. The only issue was the explosion went off 10 minutes before H-hour, alerting the Germans to the impending attack. "10 minutes after this footage was taken, the whistles would blow to signal the start of the Somme offensive." Now we're going to imagine that we are doing exactly that. Whistles blown, we are heading through the hedgerow. get past the hedge, straight away under machine gun fire from Hawthorn Ridge to our front over there. The mine hasn't done its job. Germans are occupying those positions. We're being fired upon. We're also being fired upon from Beaumont-Hamel to our front, and the strong points in that wooded area there. We're being fired upon from this ridge. And before you know it, we've gone no more than 50 metres. We're in the open, and we have enfilading fire from our right on the high ground, fire from our front, and fire from our forward left. And wouldn't you know it, we end up here. This cemetery sits at what was no man's land on the morning of 1st of July 1916, and is very likely where the British troops encountered thick belts of German wire. Now, the reason why so many of these graves say a soldier known unto God or a soldier of the Great War is because the bodies that fell here remained here for, in some cases, 4 months. They weren't recovered because this area was obviously still contested. So when they did finally capture this territory towards the end of the year, the bodies were, well, let's not talk about the state the bodies would have been in, but it would have been really difficult to identify anybody. And in some cases, they've identified the unit they came from, or whether they're an officer or a soldier, but in many cases, they just couldn't identify the soldier at all. So one of those soldiers who went over the top from the Sunken Lane that morning that we've spoken about was 2nd Lieutenant Campbell, and here is his final resting place, about 50 metres from that Sunken Lane. So you can imagine, can't you, the German soldiers on the lip of that crater at the top there on that high ground, firing down into this bowl. German strong point to our front. And the cemetery in the centre with the Sunken Lane just where those trees are, 50 metres away. Thought I'd get a bit of a broader view as I walk along to the crater to get a view from up there. You can see the hedge on the left, the cemetery in the centre, in a little bit of a depression in the ground, and you can see the strong point on the right hand side there. And as we were to pan to the right a bit more in the direction I'm heading, that's where Beaumont-Hamel is, the town that the Germans occupied. It's really sad. So now making our way up to Hawthorn Ridge Crater, which was a German strong point, but it was just slightly off target. So where they dug the mine and placed all the explosives was underneath a German position, but it was right on the lip. Didn't really cause that many fatalities or casualties. In fact, I've read somewhere that it was around about 20, which not many at all. And the Germans could then just come out of their bunkers and occupy the crater, the lip of the crater, and also most of their original positions. And from those positions, they could fire down onto the British soldiers as they advanced. And the rains come in perfectly timed for me to get some shelter in the wood. So there we are, we're at the bottom of the crater now, and you can see that it's pockmarked with all these shell holes and craters from all the artillery fire, which obviously continued during the Battle of the Somme. Lots and lots of it down here. So I'm stood right on the lip of the Hawthorn Ridge Crater, and you can see straight down to the field and the cemetery. And then to the left of that you can see where the Sunken Lane is as well, where those vehicles are parked up by the monument there. And I would say it's no more than, let's say 500 metres. And the machine guns would have been raining down fire. Just imagine seeing the soldiers moving from that Sunken Lane from left to right now in a sort of extended line. It's really hard to imagine, because you would think that it would be impossible for people to do that. But that's exactly what happened. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and a comment, as it shows YouTube that this video is worth promoting. Until next time.